New Aphotic Realm announcement. Submission windows for upcoming issues. Issue 10, the theme is justice. That's hard-boiled fiction with a supernatural twist. The deadline for that will be April 1st, 2020. Issue 11, the theme is kaiju, giant monsters terrorizing civilization. Deadline will be October 1st, 2020 for those stories. Issue 12, the theme is lycanthropy, which is, of course, self-explanatory. It can be any type of animorph with a bloody twist. So I guess that's werewolves and giant, I don't know. What do people turn into? Seals? I've just got a little seal on my desk, so I thought of that. I don't know. You'll have to be more imaginative than I just was. But the deadline for lycanthropy, January 1st, 2021. Good luck to everyone submitting.
I wrote this thing. I hope you like it. Let's talk about it, yeah. Let's lose track. Losing the Plot Podcast. Losing the Plot Podcast. Losing the Plot Podcast. Talking to Leo.
My guest today is Frank Edler. He's been a guest on the podcast before. He runs the Bizzong podcast, and so what we did this time, as we did last, is I was a guest on his podcast first, and then he was a guest on mine. So you can check out my chat with him. I'll make sure there's a link in the description for that. And our chat was about his latest release, which is called CatCoin. It's about Bitcoin, the story of Bitcoin told through cats. He also recently released Scatterbrain, and it sounds like he's got much more cool stuff to come. So I hope you enjoy our chat. If you want to get in touch with me, you can always do so using losingtheplotpodcast-at-gmail-dot-com, and I look forward to hearing from you. But that's all for me for the intro, so here is my chat with Frank Edler. I wanted to know who your favorite guests are on the podcast. Do you have people that you look forward to talking to in particular?
Yeah. I always like talking to new people, really, especially. I like talking to new people because you don't know where you're gonna get in the end. And sometimes it may start off, I noticed this a lot, like it'll start off rough. The people are nervous. Not everybody does a podcast week after week. So there's a nervous level of it. And when I get that person that I know is nervous and I'm trying to ask questions to get a little more out of them, they're being short in their answers. And then 10 minutes, usually it takes about 10, 15 minutes in. And all of a sudden, now they're opening up. They're comfortable. They realize we're just having a conversation. This isn't like they're on the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson and it's going to make or break their career. And their answers start becoming a little longer and more detailed, and they're just comfortable and rambling. And that's when I got the win there. And I'm getting interesting a conversation out of people, which is essentially what I want. But as far as like return guests, I always, everybody, I won't say everybody hates me for it because I don't really get bad feedback, but whenever Kevin Strange is on, he's a fantastic guest. He's an interesting fellow. He's always full of energy. He's always excited about whatever it is he's doing and promoting. And I think, the man's gone from writing books and he kind of got shunned from like the Bizarro scene. So instead of fighting it, he switched and he started making comic books and just, completely from scratch. He learned how to draw them and he's writing them. He's doing top to bottom, all him. I think, kudos. Whether people hate him or, that's kudos. That's really a lot of people who want to do comic books. They want to either just write them and then get an artist, or they're artists and they may need a writer. He's doing it all himself, and he's made it happen. That's exciting. And just recently, he's put it on hold now, but he's made like a card game, essentially, like a Magic the Gathering type card game. again, completely 100% all him. He did all the artwork, he did all the game design, play testing. So when he comes on and talks about that, he's super excited about it. It's new and it's kind of different too. I'm not always talking books with him because he's moved away from books. So I know he can be a polarizing figure, but I don't allow any of his, I shouldn't even say allow, we just don't get into the vitriol that he can, tend to spark off with people. We don't go there. And so I think we have very good, constructive, and energetic, entertaining conversations. So I do look forward to him a lot on the show. I look forward to people. I just recently had Garrett Cook on. I love talking to Garrett Cook. He's sort of an upper echelon figure, shall we say, in the Bizarro. He's been there out in Portland and in the scene for so long, and he has a lot of influence. He edits a great deal of books in the Bizarro genre. So every time you talk to him, it's very interesting and educational to talk to him. So yeah, but I think it's not so much, those people I look forward to talking to. I look more forward to talking to new people.
It's funny because when I asked that question, I figured you were going to say Kevin Strange, because I've listened to those conversations and they are super interesting.
Yeah,
I'm always up for listening to those. Yeah,
I had a podcast pre-Bizzong, and he was like, when he was working with Don Noble at the time when they first started Strange House, we interviewed them, and I immediately. So he's a great, as somebody who does a podcast, he's just great to interview because you can ask a question and he'll go on for half hour. And then, so it's just life easy as a podcaster in that way too. But this was before people even he kind of became a hated figure in the Bizarro genre. So I've always glommed on to him as an entertaining figure to talk to. But even when he was being a negative figure I talked to him. I tried to keep him away from that, because I still think he's an interesting person for that. And I thought, I might catch a lot of shit from having him on and get ostracized myself. But the fact of the matter was, he's always a high rated show. He gets the hate list is that's undeniable. But nobody ever came back to me and said you're a dick. Well, one person has in but for the most part, I've had more people just sending me messages that was really cool of you to have him on. It was awesome that you guys were able to talk about something other than the negative stuff. Mostly kudos for having him on and carrying on those different conversations. So. Yeah, as long as I wasn't seeing real negative stuff that was affecting my listening audience, I just kept going because I just think he's a genuinely entertaining and fun guest to have on.
It's like the message of every good story is that people are complex, and it's the thing that we hate to admit. I think just oh God, no, please make them not complex. Make me a good guy. Make them all bad guys. That would be so much easier. You're like, sorry, that's not how it works.
No, not at all.
This was my next question, actually. And I have no interest in drama. And the last thing I want to do is invite any. But do you find it difficult to avoid drama?
When there was a lot of drama going on with the Bizarro stuff, and especially when the Kevin Strange was stirring up the pot there, and everybody was up in arms about him. Jeremy Maddox, he was adding to it too. It just turned me off. I'm not going to tell you that I enjoyed Kevin Strange doing that, because I didn't. I thought he was behaving poorly. I thought a lot of people were behaving poorly on both sides of the art. And I didn't want to be a muckraker. I didn't want to bring that into Bizzong and make a thing out of it that, Kevin Strange himself made, podcasts all about it, just nothing but mudslinging and stuff. And other podcasts had sort of covered it. And I just thought it was ugly to do to bring attention to the controversy. I think it only escalated it, putting the spotlight on it for a while, and I just didn't want to be a part of that, so I ignored it. But when it came to the last year's BizarroCon and the incident with Chandler Morrison and everything that I couldn't be quiet any longer, because especially when it came to the stuff with Chandler Morrison, I just thought it was flat out wrong how he was treated, completely wrong how he was treated, and we touched on it a little bit when in our Bizzong show. You had touched on the sort of public shaming that he had to go through for really no good. It was just something that blew out of proportion. The pot boiled over, and more people became part of the conversation than there ever should have been part of the conversation. And he was in a dark space, and I felt like I was one of the few people like saying everybody is wrong. Everybody is wrong with this guy, and I was really worried for him, because he's a genuinely nice guy, and when I got to interview him after the fact of all that stuff, I mean, he was still apologetic, and I was moved by that. Him basically apologizing, like, I didn't mean to do that, and I genuinely feel sorry. He felt worse for, Jeff Burke losing his position at Deadite than anything he went through. And I'm like, I don't know how you have that composure to just genuinely be apologetic, because I would be so mad at the world for treating me like that. So I was moved by his action, and I think in the end, when all the dust cleared and settled, and people started realizing like he really was not at fault, and people had blown things out of proportion and misrepresented what he'd done, and people started to rally around him and pick up his books, and he turned that around, and I think he's better for it nowadays.
I saw that this book that caused all the controversy is getting released soon.
Yes, yeah, Dead Inside has been, man, that book's been on a longer road than maybe Chandler Morrison's been on. He did a reading from that book, and it was supposed to be, it was contracted with Deadite. After the reading and everything blew up, they canceled his contract. But then Jeff Burke went and started his own press, and he was going to publish it with the Section 31. I don't know what happened there, but it somehow got passed off from Section 31 to now Death's Head Press. It'll be out, I believe April 1st is the release date. No joke, as they say.
Nice. It just seems like in like I don't know, subcultures or like weird cultures or something, that probably on account of the influence of social media, they just find somebody every now and then to trash. I've seen it like countless times on Twitter. People I don't even know anything about, and then suddenly they've committed this tiny transgression and they get absolutely hounded by people on account of it. It's happening it's like people aren't in control of that happening anymore. And I'll probably have to cut what I would say about it, is that like I don't think I want the benefits of a community compared to how devastating that kind of thing is. I would rather just not be considered part of any community at all, rather than be considered part of a community that could dismiss me in such a terrible way like that, because I just don't want to be held accountable for the types of things that people get cast out of their communities for because of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, it makes 100% sense. And even trying to be somebody on the sidelines and vocal against the general consensus when somebody's being basically publicly shamed and slammed like that, like Chandler Morrison, you worry that if you come out and say no, that's bullshit, that you'll wind up getting railroaded too in the end. Like, oh, this jerk's that, he must be that. It's a concern. And a lot of times too, it's why I kept it off Bizzong, those controversies. And I don't know what it was. I guess when I brought it up on Bizzong, finally, that particular incident, when I generally kept those things off of the podcast, it was because I thought it was just so wrong. And there was a lot of things going on with Bizzarro that I thought was going wrong. And I thought I was at that point, I thought I was genuinely doing a disservice to the genre that I love by not saying anything wrong. I had issues with the books that were being nominated for the Wonderland Year Awards. I had issues with that. I had issues with, how people were treated in the end at BizarroCon. There were a number of issues I had, and I thought if I don't say something, it will continue. And I know I do have a voice and a certain amount of influence because of the people that listen to the show. So I thought it was finally time to just speak my displeasure with the things I saw that were probably not doing the genre the right service and casting him the wrong image. And to that credit, afterwards, like I spoke my displeasure about which books were or were not being nominated. They always said this is every Bizzarro book that came out in year X, and in that particular year, I think it was 2019. I'm like, from what I'm looking at, there's quite a number of books missing, and Nihilism Revised included, I think, were completely off the list. And I'm like, that's kind of wrong. And I know they had a controversial author that they had signed a book, and subsequently they never released the book. They cut the author. Like, they did the right thing, but they were still they still sort of got ignored because of that. And I thought that was really wrong, because Nihilism Revised from the jump was really putting out great transgressive works that really should have been, whether they make the final ballot or not is inconsequential. They should be recognized for what they're contributing to the genre, whether it's Bizzarro or adjacent. I was incensed. There's no Nihilism Revised, and yet there were straight horror books on there. They're like nothing. They were straight horror on the list just because the author essentially had written in the past like Bizzarro adjacent books, and I thought that was a disservice. Like, you can't say this is everything, and it's not everything. And I didn't even want to like blame them for like maybe blacklisting or snubbing a particular press or book. I think there was just oversight. More than anything, I really believe is just oversight, because Bizzarro itself has grown just bigger than everybody is capable of managing that manages whatever BizarroCon is, or the Wonderland Year of the Awards. But in the end, they did come back, and this past year they made it a point to ask me, what books I thought should be included, so they could build up a bigger list. I know Gabino Iglesias put out on Twitter and Facebook, what books do you all, just kind of crowdsource that list. And I think that in the end, they got a more robust and genuine list of what was out there that was Bizzarro adjacent for the Wonderland nominations.
Yeah, I mean, you've talked to Stephen on your podcast before, right?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, I'm sure I've listened to those chats before. How could you not hear what that guy has to say and not understand that this is some incredibly passionate guy who can't wait to put out a whole ton of the most interesting and weirdest stuff I've ever read, I think,
Yeah. And I mean, he's existed in the underground. Like, he prefers to be in the underground. And it's it almost seems like he's hesitant to, be as prolific as he is with the press nowadays. And especially after, they had that issue with the one author, but, and yet he continues to grow the press and just put out great book after book by authors that really a lot of people aren't aware of until they get onto Nihilism Revised. I mean, he's I think a respected press as far as Bizzarro adjacent presses go. And in this time where I think, there's so few places to the press scene is far less robust than it was 5+ years ago. So, he's important what he's doing.
Yeah, no, I mean, I totally agree. I was a huge supporter of theirs in the early years, and it seems like they have just grown in, stature and prestige and so on. But how about you? You're still, for the most part, publishing your own stuff?
I am, yeah. I just released CatCoin book. Came out in February. Again, self-published. I just completed a new death book that I will self-publish, but I've promised myself. I said I would write 3 books this year, and CatCoin was the first and published. The new Death book will be out in the summer, June, July. And then the 3rd book I write for this year, I promised myself I would not. I'm just going to hold it, and I am going to submit it around and try to work with a publisher. It's not that I have any sort of displeasure for working with publishers. I've just always enjoyed the full control I have over my work and my income earnings from that. I don't have to. Amazon's already the middleman, so I didn't want to add another middleman into that and have to arrange for books to purchase, and it just seems so easy to me. I do my due diligence, and I hire an editor and get it looked over and try to put out the best thing I can. But I do think it's time to for me to work with a publisher and get a different experience, a different look at things, maybe even attract a different sort of audience than I've grown on myself organically. So I'm determined to work with a publisher, at least with one book, and see how it all pans out.
Well, Nihilism Revised, I'm sure, would be happy to see something of yours.
Mm-hmm. They would definitely be on my list. I do have that list of publishers I'd like to work with and publish around. I'm not even sure. I just finished writing this, the first draft of this Death book, so I have to go through, clean that up and everything. So I'm not exactly sure. I have a few ideas of what I'm gonna write. It's always the trick too. I don't know if you have the same thing. Just because we write odd things like CatCoin, I looked at it. I would have liked to have maybe shopped it around, but I'm like, who wants a crypto? Like, it's not even bizarre when I wrote a cryptocurrency book with cats. Like, who's gonna take that? Type of thing. And maybe I'm being dumb and ignorant by saying who would take that. There might be a lot of people, but I was kind of afraid of, like, it was something so different. I had such a difficult time writing that, because I was like, I've never written anything like that. I don't know what I'm doing, and I had a hard time even writing it myself. And it's like, who would even want this, because I don't know what it is to try to pitch it to a publisher. So I just kind of took it myself and just, I'll throw it out there, see what it does, because I don't know what the fuck this is.
You did so much research for it.
I did a lot of research for it, but I had done, leading up to even writing it, like, I fell in love with this idea of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, and everything I learned about it, I truly honestly feel like it's the money of the future, it's the economy of the future. Whether it turns out to be Bitcoin or something else, I think cryptocurrency essentially is the money of the future. And I enjoy the fact that, world financial banks are scared shitless of it, and they'll tell you it's the devil and stay away from it. And in my mind, the more that they revolt against it, the more genuinely that it is truly it's threatening to those banks and those people and those that old money and everybody, all those bankers sitting in there with their oak chairs and their suits, and they're threatened by it. So it must be a genuinely legitimate form of currency that's going to screw them up, because it's decentralized and nobody can control it. It's a giant problem. That's why it's so, at least in the United States, it's difficult to buy it, because the U.S. still wants to get their tax dollars from you for investing in it. And the whole point of it is that the U.S. is not allowed, or any centralized bank is not allowed to. They have no control over it. It has no financial backing of any country's currency or economic system. So that's the beauty of it. But this is all stuff I learned before I even wrote the book. And this is what attracted me to it. And I was reading a lot of, watching a lot of just, documentaries and stuff on it. And I wonder if anybody's writing this, like a fictional book just based around this stuff. It's so interesting. Like, it should be prime for books about it. And there was a book, it sort of all rolls into our conversation about the the Wonderland nominations. There was a book I found. It was called Buying Illegal Bugs with Bitcoin, and I'm like, yeah, that's the type of shit I'm looking for. And I bought that book. And turned out to be one. I'm like, holy shit, this is a really great book. It should be a Bizarro book because it was really current, really, really crazy. And it was like my favorite book I read that year. And it was, not on I had George Billions who wrote it on. I had him, interviewed him on the podcast, just really polished up his balls nice because I loved the book so much. And I was disappointed when it didn't wind up on the ballot. Sort of the catalyst of like, there's a lot of things missing here, including my favorite one, what I would consider Wonderland Book of the Year, and it's not even on the nomination list. But yeah, I love that book. But in the end, the book wasn't about Bitcoin. It was more about the illegal bug, and just the Bitcoin was the means to buying the illegal bug. So it became just a very tertiary sort of part of the story. And there was another book, sort of a Disney World fiction story. There's a sort of subgenre of people who write fiction based on like the Magic Kingdom, all the Disney World theme parks, and write stories in them. And one of those books, it was called My Kingdom of Dust, I think, in which the main protagonist basically had been mining Bitcoin and was using it to buy his drugs and stuff. It was, he was using Bitcoin to sustain his life because he was living inside of Disney World, so he didn't have a job or anything. So the writer just made, this guy has Bitcoin, so he's kind of independently rich, and that's why he can live this way inside of the Magic Kingdom. But again, it was just a means to an end and not the focus of the story. And I'm like, I really want to read a story focused on Bitcoin, and it wasn't there. Cryptocurrency, I couldn't find it. So I was like, well, shit, they say you got to write the book you want to read, and the book I want to read is not out there. So I guess I need to write a cryptocurrency fiction book, and that was the catalyst for me writing CatCoin.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a complicated thing, and so like Bitcoin to me just sounds so dry that I would love to see more stories make Bitcoin compelling. I think that's a great, thing to do. Do you think there's more space for you to do that, or are you done with Bitcoin for the moment?
I mean, for the moment, I'm done with it. But yeah, there's still definitely space. I mean, just the sort of world I created in CatCoin, I can go back to that, or I likely wouldn't. I would likely tackle it from a different angle. I wanted to, with CatCoin, I wanted to almost be educational and make the concept of cryptocurrency and Bitcoin easier for people to wrap their heads around, because a lot of people don't really get it, don't understand it at all. And, and they'll listen to their, Warren Buffett saying this is the devil and don't invest in it. And they have the wrong idea about what it is. And so I wanted to present it in a way that people might be able to more easily understand it, because Bitcoin is nothing. You'll never hold it in your hand. It's just a digital currency. It doesn't exist anywhere. So I took the cats, I made cats money, so that, at least having something tangible, something people understand, and can, everybody knows what a cat is, and then just take the concept of Bitcoin and just impose it on cats. So, now it's CatCoin instead of a Bitcoin, and we can kind of understand how cryptocurrency works if you just envision it being a cat and not digital currency. And in essence, the story, it just piggybacks off of the history of Bitcoin itself, and it just kind of retold with cats. So there's a lot of, if you're into the Bitcoin, everybody knows Bitcoin Pizza Day is celebrated. I should know this, and I don't. I want to say it's May 22nd. Don't quote me on that. But Bitcoin Pizza is quote unquote celebrated every year because the first official transaction ever of Bitcoin was used to buy 2 pizzas in England. And, that's you can officially, and it's something like nowadays, those 2 pizzas, the market fluctuates, but like say at Bitcoin's peak of 20,000, it would have been like those 2 pizzas would have cost $40 million, when in essence, I think it was about less than $20 worth of Bitcoin used to make that purchase at the time. And those, whatever that amount of Bitcoin was now, when Bitcoin was at its peak, was like $40 million. So I sort of recreated that moment with the cat getting, he gets put out into the world, from his creator who created CatCoin, and he's got a hot date and he burnt the dinner and he had to buy pizza, so he quick sells off his cat for pizza. And that was my interpretation of Bitcoin Pizza Day, by selling the cat off for pizza. And then Bitcoin went through. There was an outlet called Mount Gox, Mount MTGOX. It was originally a Magic the Gathering card exchange. So MT, Magic the Gathering, GOX, card online exchange. But they turned, because they were centralized, like, global centralized place to buy Magic cards. They started taking Bitcoin as, a way just to easily transact money from any denomination. It was easier just to do it with Bitcoin because it's not, non-denominational. So because they did that, they wound up becoming, at the time, like the best place, central place to basically trade your currency in for Bitcoin. And they moved away from Magic the Gathering cards and just became the place where you can exchange your currency for Bitcoin. And they became very popular doing that, but unfortunately too popular because it was a Frenchman running the business out of Japan, and so much money was coming in. Essentially, he was starting Ponzi scheme thing, and he was spending more of that money than he was, and basically got caught. And there's tons of Bitcoin that went missing and everything. So I did recreate the Mount Gox thing, and I made it with Mount Cox, COX for cats. And created instead of Magic the Gathering, it became Meowgic the Gathering, and kind of retold. So I do that sort of thing. Like, I take the real life sort of landmark parts of the history of Bitcoin and just kind of retell them with the cats. And it's all done to sort of help educate everybody and better wrap their minds around what the Bitcoin is, what the cryptocurrencies is.
Lovely. Well, I've read the book, and I think you just convinced me to read it again. It's an excellent promo.
It's awesome.
Yeah, it makes the history of Bitcoin easy to understand, and it's filled with cat puns.
Yes.
And who doesn't love those?
Right. Everybody loves cats. That's sort of originally there was another story I had in mind of writing. I kind of put some pen to paper where it wasn't really working, but it involved a cat. So when I said this story isn't working, and I'm like, I need to write this Bitcoin, this cryptocurrency story, I still had cats on the brain, essentially. And that's why I took cats. I could have taken anything, I could have made a banana coin. I could have made a helicopter coin. Like, I could have done anything, but it just happened to be I had cats on the brain when I sat down and started.
But you don't have any cats?
I don't. No, I'm actually allergic to cats.
Okay.
So yeah, but and there is, I don't remember why the story starts out in Italy. It's just a street cat in Italy, because I'd been to Italy, and I was always so Italy is like littered with cats in the cities, and so just everywhere. To the point where, like, you can buy like calendars when you're in Italy in the little gift shops, like the cats of Italy, because they're just everywhere. So I figured that it was just kind of like, well, I know that Italy seems to be littered with cats. I'll start the story there. Just take a cat off the street, and that cat becomes the first CatCoin, and just sort of made it a globe-trotting thing. And in the end, like I said, I didn't know what this. I still don't know what the story. I'm marketing it as like either techno thriller or action adventure, but I don't know what the fuck it is. It's not horror. I guess it's comedy. I try to always try to make it funny. But yeah, it's a really new thing. It's not, it's certainly not death. It's not brats in hell. It's removed from that. The kind of monster element was taken away. So yeah, I'm still not sure I'm marketing it the right way, but that's how I'm doing it. even when I first started writing, I had a hard time categorizing I don't know what the hell I write. I really didn't know. I'm like, I know Jeff Strando's comedy, but I really don't write like Jeff Strand. And I know, Christopher Moore is sort of the big name in horror comedy, but I don't write like him. So I just, people would say, oh yeah, like Christopher Moore. I'm like, yeah, like Christopher Moore, sure. And I would just take those cues from people who checked it out and took their reactions and used those cues to market like what I am.
Mm-hmm. You collaborate, like you hang out with other writers in real life, right?
Mm-hmm, I do.
Who are like your typical go-to people?
My closest writer friends that I interact with the most are Chuck Buda and Tim Meyer, and that's just by virtue of we all live in New Jersey and we're able to get together often. But I also Armand Rosapilli has been a long time mentor for me, and I mean, he lives down in Jacksonville, Florida, but we're always interacting. I've been down to his house. I've been to his wedding. He comes up to New Jersey often because he's originally from New Jersey, and we all pal around in person like that. But that's sort of my core writing group is us four: Armand, Rosamilia, myself, Chuck Buda, and Tim Meyer. And the funny thing was when I started writing and I couldn't find writers to connect with to interact with in person. And I'm like, how am I in New Jersey? Like, right, I can see New York skyline from my house. Like I'm in northeast of the country and I can't find writers. Like, it was crazy. And until I went down to Scares at Care in Williamsburg, Virginia, all of a sudden all these people from New Jersey were there. I was like, oh my God, you're from New Jersey too? You're from New Jersey too? And it was at that convention that we all met one another. So I was like, it was weird. I had to go down to Virginia to meet writers from New Jersey. But from that, that time for my first time to Scares at Care, we hooked into one another and we started doing like weekends. We'll go to a coffee shop or something and write together, or just go to each other's houses and write together. And now we've collaborated on books and do these book signing tours. It's been awesome to work with those fellers.
How often do you go to conventions? Do you have any lined up that you're going to?
I had started going to there's a number of big horror conventions in my area that come through, but I tend to stay away from those because I don't think they're book friendly conventions. There was a startup one called the New Jersey Horror Convention, and we went to the very first one. And did a subsequent one after that. But what we found was they're very, like most horror conventions tend to be, they're very movie centric, and it's all about the stars that show up. It's all about the guys who are selling Funko Pops. It's all about the guys who are selling like the horror T-shirts. Selling books is really difficult. Basically, when you have movie fans showing up at these conventions, they see that book and they turn their head away, like, I don't read books, and get they get scared.
Yeah.
So and because they're very popular like that and attracting big name guests, the tables are very expensive. So it's extremely hard to recover your money when you're paying close to $300, if not more, for a table for the weekend. So I've shied away from them. But I do love going to Scares at Care. Scares at Care is genuinely very reader centric. It's at least, they do get their movie celebrities in there, television celebrities, but Brian Keene runs the author track for the convention, and so it becomes at least 50-50 as far as moviegoers and fiction readers. So it does draw a great deal of readers in and writers at the same. It's a great convention to network at, and it's a great convention to sell books at. The only caveat is there's so many writers there and so many readers, but they're going into the writer celebrity room first. You're going to want to get Jonathan Jans before you pick up Frank Edler, that. So there's still a great deal of competition. It's not a room full of people who don't want to read books. It is a room full of people who want to read books, but there's so many books, and getting people's money gets a little difficult when there's bigger names there. But selling books is not why I go there. For me, I go there to interact with other writers, and I have that core group of friends, but there's a great deal more people that I just go enjoy seeing there. It's probably the one time a year I get to see a lot of my more social media friends. There's several writers in Pennsylvania, the adjacent state to me, that I do get to interact with several times a year too. But to get down there, Scares of Care, they draw writers in from all over the country, so it's a really great time to interact and network with everybody.
How about BizarroCon? When was the last time you were there? You've been a few times, I'm assuming.
Oh, I've never been to BizarroCon.
Really?
BizarroCon,
okay.
Yeah, I've never been. I mean, for me, BizarroCon is on the west coast of the U.S., so it's a complete flight across the country. Those flights tend to be extremely expensive. So to travel there, for me, it's expensive. Also, it's usually in November, and by November, I've burned through all my time off from work, so taking off would be difficult to manage it, to keep enough days to spend a weekend out in Portland. So with those two concerns, I never really got out there. And then when it started just getting to the point where, they went through about like 3 years in a row where there was always some kind of drama that came out of it. It just, I didn't want to spend all that money to go out and get involved with some kind of drama and come back and you don't want to get screwed into that. So
yeah,
I basically shied away from even wanting to go out there. So yeah, and this past year there wasn't even a BizarroCon. So for now, as much as I had wanted to go and interact with that scene, who knows what's going on with BizarroCon anymore? Eventually I would like to get out there, but it's just, right now there's very little reason for me to want to go out and attend that.
So we talked a bit about CatCoin, but you had another book, Scatterbrain, came out earlier. Did it come out late last year?
Yeah, it came. Well, no, it wasn't even that. I think it was the end of 2018, because I went through 2019 with dismal release schedule. I mean, like, when I talk about it was hard for me to write CatCoin, basically 2019 was me writing CatCoin, struggling through that. There were a number of issues, but the biggest thing was just it was a very slow going process because of the constant research for it, because of my unsureness about writing the book. So there were a lot of I would busy myself with other projects and stuff. So I did a lot of writing that nobody saw in 2019, but I didn't do much of releasing. But at the tail end of 2018, yeah, I came out with Scatterbrain. And that's a killer brand. I want to write like sort of a B movie type of a fun book, and so I looked out, everybody write vampires, werewolves. What's the movie monster nobody tackles? And I always thought of that black and white movie with the brains floating through the air. And it's been a while. I forget, the name escapes me. But I'm like, yeah, we need a killer brain story. Like, nobody's doing them. So that's why I wrote Scatterbrain.
That's awesome. And there's Killer Brain Haiku. Were they always planned to be part of it?
No, I always like to add a little something at the end of the book. I don't like just the end and it's over, like a little something. So I had no idea what to do for Scatterbrain, and I was legitimately just sitting there drinking beer, and I was all buzzed up, and I'm like, all right, in haiku, and so so there's a whole bunch of Killer Brain haiku that I probably wrote all that in an hour, just put it out there, something fun, and I was half in the bag.
You also have stories in some anthologies that have come out recently. Well, in quite a few now, right?
Yeah. Like I said, I was busy. I was distracting myself from CatCoin with other things, and so those other things had popped up. Like, and to your point, you asked me, about conventions, and I told you I was shying away from them, minus the Scares of Care. But what we do every year is, as I mentioned, Armand Rosamilia, myself, Chuck Buda, Tim Meyer, all have been getting together the last few years. When Armand will come up to New Jersey, he'll spend some time up here, and we've put together this sort of little book tour where we go to local breweries and set up a table, put our books out, and just stand around drinking a beer until people get drunk enough that they want to know what the hell's going on. Come over, we talk to them, maybe they buy some books and sign them and stuff. So we do this over like the course of 2 weeks. We'll visit 4, 5, 6 different breweries and make a tour out of it. So we've done that to the point where like people were like legitimately coming from different states and stuff to hang out and be a part of it because we all talked to it. I'm like, this is great. We just drink beer and sell books. And everyone's like, really? And I was like, yeah. So everybody wants to come check it out. And it's kind of become a tiny little like notorious thing that we do. To the point that last year we're like, we should probably collaborate on a book called Beers and Fears. And, it's a book with all 4 of us. So when people are shopping, they're like, well, what do you write? They're not sure what. So we have like a token book for them, almost a souvenir book for coming out to one of the signings. So we collaborated and wrote Beers and Fears, the Haunted Brewery. We have to write some beer horror. Like people will get behind that. And they really did, because that book did tremendously. And we basically, the concept behind that was there was like an old like mental asylum that had closed down years ago, and people had subsequently opened up as a brewery, and it's operating as a brewery over the past several decades. And we write it from one story took place in the 70s, another took place in the 80s, and one in the 90s, and then wrote sort of like a reporter reporting on these, interviewing the bar owner, and he's telling these stories of like these weird things that happened because this place used to be a mental asylum. So that's what we did, and put that book out there. It did very well on the tour, obviously. But we ran some book bub promotion on it, and just the idea of beer horror, people really got excited about, and we sold a lot of books for that, and did very well doing that. So what turned out to be a souvenir for people to come out and drink beer with us turned out to be a pretty popular book, and a lot of fun to collaborate on as well. And to the tune of, we just finished or we're working through now the Beers and Fears 2 book, which we hope to have out. God only knows if we're going to be doing beer here because of social distancing. I got to imagine at this point it might not happen this year, but we'll have a book out for people to enjoy, and hopefully we can do it again at some point later in the year or next year if we have to.
Excellent. How about these? Don't you have a few stories published? Do you think you'll end up putting them in a collection?
Like some of the things you might be referring to is I was in there's a zine. I got into some zines doing Bizzong. There was some Ira Rat does Filthy Loot, and he's been releasing some zines, and also Ben Fitz puts out the rock and roll horror zine, which appealed to me, and especially Ben Fitz rock and roll horror zine. I had been writing and putting on my blog these short little stories just about like rock, like the time I hung out with Motley Crue, right? But the story turns out like I was hanging out with Motley Crue. We all got drunk hanging out in their tour bus, and like Medusa comes and attacks Nikki Sixx, and like Nikki Sixx just kills me. Like just quick little fun stories, right? Because I'm all in for like the 80s hair metal stuff. I love that stuff. So I just start writing these. Yeah, the time I hung out with Warrant and the giant monster came and they defeated it, and I wanted to just sort of write these quick little things, put them up on my blog, but not really a lot of people read my blog. I'm just going to throw them up there for free. And then once I had enough, I was going to do a book of them, a story collection of them. But they kind of petered out. I lost interest. I did 4 or 5 of them. And then I saw Ben Fitz Rock and Roll Horror Magazine. I'm like, oh, these stories would fit in that. So I submitted to him, and he was like, oh, yeah, this is great. So I got in 2 of his different zines with a couple of those stories. And then I don't know what else was. Oh, there was a zombie anthology I was suckered into. I swore to myself I'd never write zombie fiction because I read so much of it. Like, I'm tired of zombies, and I don't really write it all. And then yet there was this opportunity came up I need writers for this anthology. So this is Armand Rosamilli basically said, I need you to write a story for this. And I don't tell him no. So, if there's an opportunity for me to do something, what the hell, take it. Right. So So I did wind up writing a zombie story, much to my chagrin, but I try to have as much fun with it as possible. I sort of turned it into an homage to Joe Lansdale's The Drive-In, but with the zombies attacking, and I just got through it that way.
Nice. Yeah. So no plans for an anthology for the moment of your own stuff. Sorry, like a collection. That's what I mean.
Stores. No, I released my first thing I ever released was a short story collection. Just kind of here's my stuff to throw it out there. It was called Scared Silly. So I have one out there, and it's really early rough work. I'm not going to tell people don't read it, but it is early rough work. Fair warning. But usually anything I write short story wise now, it might be specifically for something. I do have short stories like laying around. I was in that Breaking Bizarro, was it called? Death's Head Press one. Yeah. That was a story I just had sitting around. It had originally been accepted for a literary magazine that went defunct by the time my piece was to get published. So it was kind of sitting around. And when the Death's Head press call came out, they wanted to do Bizarro, but I know they were looking for like a horror bent. And this one, ironically enough, is like a reverse zombie thing. It's sort of like zombies after they're dead in heaven. If I do zombies, I'm going to do it completely not straight. I have to have fun with it. So I had that sitting around, and it was a good fit for there, and they accepted that. I got that into the Breaking Bizarro story. So, but that wasn't something I wrote specific. It was just something laying around. I probably, if I put it all together, I could do a short story collection. I have them sitting around. I just don't know what to do with them. I thought, some I might add to the end of like I said, I like to put some extras in at the end of books. So
yeah,
maybe throw one back there. I was thinking about doing that with CatCoin, but like I said, CatCoin's so different. It would be weird to add a story that really didn't hold thematically with the CatCoin to, add that at the end. So I just did my own sort of essay at the end of CatCoin about why I did CatCoin. Yeah. So there's stories around. I have an idea. I would love to. I have a concept for a short story collection, but I don't think I have enough material to do it, and so it's not outside the realm of possibility to do that. My biggest thing is like, I don't know, do those sell? as little as my novellas sell, would a short story collection sell? I don't know what the interest level there is. It seems like those are less popular than novels, novellas.
Yes, no, I think they are for sure. But you seem quite comfy writing something at the novella length, and I think that's pretty smart for it's great to have a book of that length as an introduction to a writer. But I just prefer stuff at that length.
Yeah. People have been. It's just nowadays they more gravitate to. Sort of the comfort zone is genuinely about. Generally about 50,000 words. CatCoin lands like 30,000 words. It's pretty short. But on average, what I write is about 50,000 words, and Brats in Hell goes up into 60. So I don't know. I just say novellas because depends on what your definition. It straddles that line, 50,000 words. Some people call that novel. Some people call it novella. So
yeah.
You call it, you pay me and read it.
Yeah, that's good. It's a good philosophy. Yeah, and well, this was just my last question, but it was the one that I thought of when we were talking on your podcast as well. It's like, do you find it important that your writing responds to technology? We talked a little bit about influencers.
Well, that it responds to technology, like acknowledges it's out there, or
well, in the way that you've created a narrative about Bitcoin in order to make it more easily digestible. Do you find that that's an important thing to do, or was that just a one-off thing for you?
It's probably a one-off. It was just the technology that I wanted to spotlight. I kind of sometimes think it eludes me sometimes, especially I write these monster books and weird worlds to get away from, people challenging me on things like, my reality. So I don't have to have the right gun in things. I can make up a gun. I can make up my world so you can't challenge me on the facts of things. And it sometimes I read books and it's that thing where, like, cell phones, cell phones are ubiquitous now. They're everywhere. And, you can't write like crime stories without, it used to be part of the problem was people were not easily at your fingertips, and now they are because of cell phones. And so you have to acknowledge those technologies that exist around us. And I don't know that I could be cognizant of that sometimes if I were to try to write something in the real world, quote unquote, to be mindful of. I don't know if I would remember a cell phone in this, and kind of screw myself up by not thinking of something, as right there in our faces constantly. It's as I'm writing, my cell phone's probably next to the computer as I'm writing. But I might forget that caveat of, like, that won't work because there's cell phones and you could just pick it up and either research that or call somebody, So the technology thing is, I think because of what I've been writing, I don't always consider it. I mean, I have to consider CatCoin now or just Bitcoin when I write things, because that could play into something, that's a possibility. And I'm not always thinking along them levels. But if it were focused like CatCoin or like influencers and TikTok and stuff like that, like, I could probably focus a book on that. I had a story idea at one point. I was almost offended by the concept of, I don't know if you remember these. I think they're still a thing, but on Amazon you could get these dash buttons, and they're
don't know.
They might not even do them anymore, but they were these little buttons, right? They're like an oval button, a very physical thing. Like, you could order. Say you're really into Charmin.
Oh yeah, I remember. Yeah.
Like, they'd have a Charmin toilet paper dash button, and you could put that. I guess you would put it in the closet where you keep your toilet paper, like, just handy, And it was Bluetooth connected and everything like that. And whenever you needed more Charmin toilet paper, you just press this button, and it would automatically put in an order for Charmin toilet paper for you with Amazon. But it seems so absurd to me, because they were very product specific, that, like, what do I need to put these buttons all over my house? Because now I'm out of chicken soup, so I have the chicken soup button. Now I'm out of cat, so I have a ketchup button. I need new sneakers. I got the sneaker button. Because we can buy everything on Amazon, and they have these product specific Bluetooth buttons, these dash buttons, they were calling them. And I was like, I almost wrote a book where this guy, his whole house, he was just overwhelmed by dash buttons all over them, because it seems so absurd to me. And well, luckily that technology didn't really take off, because it was stupid. Because I was so close to writing it, because I was like, if these things take off, like, I'm going to be the dash button horror guy. And luckily I didn't miss that boat. But that idea, I really wanted to write that, like somebody being overwhelmed by technology, this stupid technology that just encroached on their life so much that, their house was floor to ceiling buttons for ordering things. And then, they order so much, their house just cramped with stuff they ordered because it's at their fingertips. Just exploring it's exploring the way Amazon has, encroached on our lives, essentially. Stupid buttons.
Sounds like it would have been great.
I know, it would have been great. I still would love to write it, but the buttons never took off, so it wouldn't really make much sense, I don't think.
How could you write it in a way that, like...
I know you'd have to glom onto something else similar, but I don't know that it exists. I'd have to think.
What if it was like the one guy who thought they were going to take off, so he hoarded them first because he thought they'd be like collectibles, like Beanie Babies or something?
Yeah, like, I could still write it. Like, I don't know that the dash buttons are a thing still. Yeah. But yeah, I could still write it and have that one guy who believed in it. But if I don't think it would hold interest if the thing didn't take off. If people sort of had them, it would be more interesting. But I don't think it ever really got into people's lives that much.
You could do like an alternate history one where dash buttons did take off and they took over, and then it's like Ray Bradbury style, the last guy on Earth just clicking these buttons, hoping that his toilet paper shows up or something.
Yeah, I mean, this feels like a great idea. I don't want to let it go. I just don't know that it would.
I'm sure there's something there.
Yeah, there might be something.
Yeah.
There. Maybe somebody who. What if it's a person who just can't stop doing TikTok? Like their whole life is taken over by doing TikTok productions 10 seconds at a time, and then they just, that's their whole life. I don't know how that would work.
There was this performance artist guy who I think for like a whole year would punch into a time clock like every hour.
Yeah.
Maybe it'd be that you have to do a TikTok every hour or something to appease the TikTok gods.
Well, you have to do my kids are forever just like stopping and doing these dances, you know. Just as they're walking up the steps and they get to the top of the stairs and they go into whatever these Fortnite dances are, whatever they're doing, these little dance moves, and then it just becomes like a tick. The whole world is TikTok dancing or something. I don't know, something like that.
No, I'm mesmerized by it. Sometimes I watch these compilations on YouTube and I'm just like, who on earth? Just watching them, and I want to ask them, like, who on earth did you think wanted to see this? This is bizarre. Nobody wants to see you do this. Like, apparently people do. I don't know.
I mean, it is amazing. Isn't the bathwater girl the girl that was selling like $5 jars of her bathwater? Wasn't she a TikTok? Mm-hmm. Yeah, like, wow.
Something like that. Just insane.
Right.
So we might have Beers and Fears 2. Is there anything else forthcoming that we need to know about?
Like I said, I just completed the first draft of the new Death book, tentatively titled "A Death in Toledo." So it's not. Okay. I have Death Gets a Book. This is not really Death Gets a Book 2. It's a completely different Grim Reaper, a completely different story. But it's just another a book or another story in that world of Grim Reapers that I've created. And then beyond that, there will be Beers and Fears 2 out in the summer as well. And like I said, the third story I'm going to start writing this year will be held for to shop around to a publisher. So I doubt that would see the light of day this year. But beyond that, whatever I write next is going to be shopped around. So you likely wouldn't see it until next year or beyond.
Cool. Well, best of luck with it all. Great chatting to you for so long.
Yeah, it's always a treat to talk to you, man. I genuinely love your podcast and everything. So it's really fun for me to come on and be a part of it as well. Oh,
thank you so much. Yeah, we'll keep in touch like always.
Definitely we will. I love doing these back and forth, the Bizzong and Losing the Plot podcast crossover shows. Always a lot of fun.
Crossover spectacular. Yeah.
Definitely genuinely fun. So I hope everybody else has as much fun listening as we've had talking to one another here for 17 hours.
It only felt like 5.
It really did. The time does fly, and hey, in this time of worldwide social distancing, maybe we've helped people erase 5 hours of their lives as well.
Yeah, I hope so. Okay, so that was Frank Edler, author of CatCoin, Scatterbrain, and many other works. More stuff to come. If you have anything you want to tell me about the podcast, you can always get in touch with me using losingtheplotpodcast-at-gmail-dot-com, and I look forward to hearing from you. But that's all from me for now. So until next time, bye bye.